Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. This is your host Amina Ahmed, and you're watching Next Gen. We stream on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Galaxy 19 satellite. Last week on Next Gen, or last episode actually, we focused on disability and advocacy regarding disability, as well as the destigmatization of many of the issues that people in the community face, as well as how we as a Muslim or the South Asian community can focus on not looking at people with disability in a negative light, but empowering those in our community with disability. Today, we will be talking about accessibility in different aspects in education and employment, not just awareness about disability in our community. And to do that, we have with us Brother Muhammad Yusuf. Usually we bring in, people of our generation, Gen Z type people, but this brother, mashallah, he for years has been empowering young people with disability to find employment for education and inclusion in their community. But Brother Muhammad Yusuf is the Director of Office of Infrastructure, Safety, and Asset Innovation at the Federal Transit Administration. Prior to that, he worked at FHWA as Research Transportation Specialist at the Research and Development, where he was involved in research on connected and automated vehicles and accessible transportation. He had also worked at General Motors and Chrysler Corporation in the areas of vehicle product development. He is the founder and president of Equally Able Foundation, which has empowered 40,000 people with disabilities in 13 different countries. He is a thought leader in transportation and disability development, and he is also the author of this wonderful memoir that I am reading right now, Ascending Adversity. I think this brother, mashallah, you are wearing multiple hats. You are empowering those around you, and clearly you yourself are very, very empowered. Thank you for being on our show today.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me. And oh my goodness, you didn't have to read the bio and go through the detail.
I think that you are a very humble person. I met you, I met Brother Muhammad Yusuf not too long ago, and I was like, when I look at this brother, he usually has his head down, and when you compliment him, he's like, no, 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 this is, it's just such a humble, down to earth person. And that is why I recommend all of you to read this memoir, to get a full grasp of Brother Muhammad Yusuf and his work for decades, right? This is not something that is a new project, something new that you have started. But I want to ask you, Brother Muhammad, what was your inspiration? What caused you to start Equally Able?
Jazakallah for that question. My life has gone through so many ups and downs, and having been through those challenges, and when Allah helped me to be where I am, it was a reflection of what one could do to again help others in need. What is critical or key to all of this aspect is that sometimes you think like a need could be met with when we do something huge, but in terms of empowering people in other countries, sometimes it is just a very simple thing that can go a long way in helping others. And the idea of Equally Able was to just see what and all we could do, but mostly drawing from the experiences of what I had gone through and how to use that to make a difference.
Can you tell us a little bit about your own experiences that caused you to, start Equally Able, or to even work in this area for so long, and work in transportation, making transportation more accessible, as well as start this foundation that has empowered 40,000 people in so many different countries? What was your own experience that started this?
Yeah, so like just as a reference, I had polio as a child. So that happened when I was 2 years old, and I don't have a recollection of that. I'm actually glad that I don't. But when I had that for a long time, um, due to the circumstances and stigma, stereotype, education was never considered a part of my life, and there were other options being considered. And at the age of 12, that was the first time I went to school. And since then, like every time like you want to achieve something, I met with obstacles. And Among them were access to education, access to equipment, access to employment when I actually graduated. So like our foundation, the idea was to really see how we could remove some of the barriers to education, to providing equipment and employment, because employment is huge. It provides not only the financial like inclusion, but it also makes one part of the community and like social being.
Right, right. And what initiatives are Equally Able tackling right now? What initiatives have you guys launched? I know that it has been going on for a pretty long time. I believe about 2 decades, if I'm not wrong.
That,
It's been there for a while, yes.
that is correct. So the two big initiatives this year that we are focusing on is one, to build regional wheelchair manufacturing centers. And we have a project in Kenya, and we also have been in discussions with Pakistan to see how we could make wheelchairs like high quality WHO standard wheelchairs available that can run both in indoor and outdoor environments. And then we also are working on what we call a Give Hope Housing initiative, wherein we are planning to create 1,000 small businesses for people with disabilities.
And those are wonderful initiatives, and I know that your team is working closely with the leadership in this arena with so many different countries, and I'm kind of thinking that that must be so difficult. That must come with its own set of challenges, especially when you're not just working nationally, you're working internationally. What challenges, what issues do you guys face when it comes with that?
Alhamdulillah, like what has worked in our favor is that we have been lucky to have found reputable but organizations with good heart. In terms of the challenges, unless you're working with an organization which works in the disability space, you will have to create the awareness and the environment to work with those organizations, and that takes some time and effort. But especially like the project in Kenya, and even the discussions that we are having in Pakistan, we are working at like the highest level. And we just had a meeting in Kenya 2 weeks ago, where we had the first prototype of the wheelchair project that we had envisioned, and that involves the Kenyan government, another organization in UK, local partners, universities, and over 80 some people attended the gathering that was to look at the first prototype.
Wow, wow, that's amazing, amazing work that you are doing, Brother Muhammad. We will be right back to continue discussing the work of Equally Able, as well as work that you have done in other sectors after our short break. You're watching us on Muslim Network TV. We stream on Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Galaxy 19 satellite. We will be right back after our short break. here with Brother Muhammad Yusuf, who is the founder and president of Equally Able Foundation. Thank you so much once again for being here with us. Before the break, we were speaking about the work of his foundation, Equally Able, and now I want to kind of talk about your work in transportation. And you have been involved in that work for a very long time. How have you been able to improve transportation for people with disabilities? How have you been able to make transportation more accessible through your work?
Again, thanks so much for that question. And as I'm answering that question, I want to just underscore that I'm speaking in my personal capacity and not as someone at FTA. But transportation has been a barrier or a key challenge for me all my life. So when I was in India, you could never imagine driving a car. And when I came to the US, the first time I was able to have a driving license and be able to drive a car with hand controls, that really brought another level of independence and something that is so difficult to describe in a few words. But literally I was able to go anywhere I wanted to, and that kind of really gave me the first chance to really experience how removing barriers to transportation looks like or means. And luckily, alhamdulillah, it so happened after my initial work in Detroit with Chrysler and GM, I had an opportunity to join the federal government and work at the US Department of Transportation. I was hired for my expertise in vehicle engineering, but it so happened that I had some ideas, and I pursued those, and really was ended up creating a program that gained national significance. And the program was focused on using technology, and we were able to look at what user needs and what gaps and challenges that exist for travelers with disabilities. That includes vision, hearing impairment, physical impairment, but more importantly, cognitive disabilities. That's a huge area, and some of us who are exposed to those, especially when we are seeing autism and Down syndrome, even like for the aging parents, that's a huge area, because when you use technology, you could design to any condition. But when you're designing to look at the cognitive disabilities, at a given time in a day, your level of what you can do and cannot do in terms of the daily living, activities is different. So alhamdulillah, that program had really looked into, and what is I'm very happy to um, say to your audience is that we had 7 different technology types or prototypes that are actually being socialized and being used in a variety of applications in the US. And some of those really have also been looked at as something that other countries can adopt. And we had done a cost benefit on that, just to look at what different actions the government can take and how that could be improved. And it was amazing to see the numbers. We were looking at like $800 billion impact. So transportation is huge. And in another study, roughly like 1/3 of the people who are with disabilities and actually are in the marketplace find transportation to be a huge obstacle.
Hmm. Right. And you talk about the linking of independence in transportation. And I think that's something a lot of us can forget, when we talk about accessibility, the ability to move from one place to another. I mean, you talked about how you weren't even able to drive until you came to America, and how that changed so many things for you. And hopefully that accessibility will give that sense of independence to many people with disabilities. Now, back to Equally Able Foundation, a organization that I am just impressed with to another level. I want to know for our audience, what does the future of Equally Able look like? What are your goals for the upcoming year, for 2023? What do you hope to achieve?
Inshallah, we are looking at something that can allow Equally Able to stand the the time, and be sustainable and be there, whether we are there or not. And in terms of that, capacity building and institutionalizing the organization is some of the things that we are looking at. In terms of the projects, the regional wheelchair manufacturing centers, those are ongoing, and we want to continue to do that. What we are also looking at is creating a technology center that can empower individuals with disabilities in the US, and that is still in like the early stages of concept, and it's like a white paper we are trying to put together. But having done so much, alhamdulillah, in the transportation world and in emerging technology areas, I feel like there is something that we could pick from there and start to also see how we could bring that as part of Equally Able. Youth like you and all, like that is the power of tomorrow, and I feel and really believe that we could benefit so much more from engaging with you all and seeing how you all could be part of our effort. Although like this organization is like 20 years old, every voice we take very seriously, and any ideas that you have to improve or to be part of Equally Able, welcome that opportunity. And actually that's something that I'm really hoping that that we will be able to do.
Definitely. I urge our young people who are watching to support the Equally Able Foundation. And Brother Muhammad Yusuf, how do you support your organization, your work that you are doing? How can someone, for example, donate for someone in another country to be able to get access to a wheelchair that meets the WHO standards? How do we do that?
Yeah. I mean, you could go to our website, equallyable.org, and there is a donate button. But when you actually are on the donate page, there are different options for you to pick, whether it is like a education program or equipment. But in the comments, there is a comments box. If you have a particular country in mind, you could indicate that. The donations to Equally Able are tax deductible, but also are zakat eligible. So there are even options for you to pick from. If it is a zakat fund, please check that box, and we'll make sure that these monies are spent like that.
Great. Thank you for that. And before we end today, I think you have a lot of wisdom to give to our young people. What advice do you have to the young people who are watching, to young people who want to learn about accessibility? What advice do you have to them when it comes to the topic of accessibility and addressing that?
The easiest thing one could do is there is almost in any community you will have an individual with a disability. Shadow them like for an hour, for half an hour. Just try to be in their shoes, and you will see like what life is like. But more importantly, I think our youth here, to them, someone with a disability, the empathy levels are all different. You all look at disability in a very different way than when we used to, when we were back in India. So like, with regard to like, that could be huge. And then make disability part of any other narrative, any discussion that you have, whether it is schools or even boards. We need to increase, especially in our community, the level of awareness and sensitivity. I mean, I want to say sensitivity because our environments are not still welcoming to the extent that they need to be.
Right. Thank you so much, Brother Muhammad Yusuf, for being on our show today. Thank you for your advice and for the work that you are doing.
Thanks so much for having me, and duas to you all the listeners, and please keep us in duas as well.
Inshallah. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in today. Make sure to support Equally Able through the way that our Brother Muhammad Yusuf just explained. And we will be back the week after next week for our episode on Next Gen. You're watching us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Galaxy 19 satellite at Next Gen, where we seek to amplify the voices of young people and those who are empowering young people. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.